Welcome back to Dance Studio Owner Life Coaching. This week, I want to talk to you about the scarcity mindset. And specifically, I want to talk about the scarcity mindset when it comes to money. And the reason why I think this is important to talk about is because a lot of us experience this, but we don't really know that this is what's happening. We don't really recognize it. We just think and act and believe certain things without putting much thought into the why and how we got to where we are. Now, for me in particular, I noticed that I had this scarcity mindset with money when I kind of unpacked this with my own life coach. And so I learned that a lot of the things that I was fearful of taking action on, or things that I felt like I couldn't do, or things that were holding me back, were more tied to my mindset than reality. And what I discovered through this process, I also learned about how things from our childhood impact how we act as adults and as business owners. So I'll give you an example, right? We might have a childhood where our parents were not wealthy. And in this case, you might see things where you're taught from an early age that we can't do this, we can't afford this, and you're getting a no based on money and financial resources. So maybe you remember having the same meal, the same lower budget meal very frequently, or less expensive drinks. Maybe you weren't allowed to pick out maybe a dessert that you'd like. Maybe you didn't get to go out for ice cream as a child, or you were denied to get the waffle cone or something. Maybe that awkward moment of you go out to eat with friends and people are kind of acting funny when it comes time to pay the bill, and maybe they don't want to divide the bill equally to make it easy. They really just like, no, I just ordered this, just a water and a soup, and I don't want to have to pay any more. Maybe there's things that happened where you saw a marriage and family fall apart because of money, because of debt, overspending, or secret spending. Maybe you saw your family fall apart, or maybe your own marriage fell apart because of money related issues, right? And I even remember, I don't, now I am in my 40s, and I remember a time as a child where I had like this Halloween costume that my mom bought me, and I was so upset because it was like the most basic, ugly Halloween costume. And I just was, as a child, so upset. But in retrospect, like that's what she bought because that's what she could afford and she could get in time by the time it was Halloween and it was about time for me to go out trick or treating. And there's times when I look back and think about what maybe my family might have gone through back then, and things where we made it through. If times were tough, mom made the tuna casserole, right? If times were tough, we didn't go out to eat like at all. If times were tough, my parents knew how to live lean. And there was also those times of prosperity, right? There's times when we did the vacations to Disney. My family went to Cancun. They did different activities that proved that we were not impoverished, but there was still a message that came through loud and clear as a child that it's a no, we can't because of money, or things can fall apart because of money. And so when we look at these kinds of things as an adult, we start to realize that we are making decisions, statements, taking action or not taking action based on those same mindsets that we developed as children. Yet our circumstances could be completely different. I remember at one point I was so nervous because I switched jobs and I was actually taking a pay cut, but it was going to be a lot less stress and I'd have more availability in my schedule because I'd be working part time. So I could spend more time on the studio. And I was so nervous. And my husband was like, it's not a death sentence. It's just what you're going to do for now, and we're going to be fine. And just that reminder that, yeah, you're going to be fine. We're not necessarily in this position. Um, was just a reminder to me like, I am so scared and nervous to downgrade my employment going from full time to part time so I can have time at my studio and time with my family. And I am recalling those fears of not having an exact replacement of the same or more money, that suddenly everything is going to be ruined. Now, as I'm sure you can guess, we were totally fine. I went from a full time job to a part time job and then continued to work at the studio and build it up to what it is today. And now I do not have another employment outside of my own small businesses, of which I have three now. And I learned how to create the job that I wanted. But I had to do a lot of work, honestly. I had to do a lot of work to unpack this scarcity mindset. So I did a little bit of research for today's episode because I really want to share this because I think this might impact you as well in one way or the other. So the scarcity mindset is where you equate money or having money with safety. If you're equating money with safety and also stability, this will then bring fears if you lose money because you are losing safety and stability. This could be something where you're paying a big bill that comes through, and maybe like your insurance bill comes due for your studio and it's more than you were expecting. And while, yes, you could pay for it today, you're nervous about spending the money because that money in the bank represented for you stability and safety. Never mind that you have the money to pay for it and still do everything else. Giving away a large sum of money can actually cause you to feel anxious and nervous. Your nervous system will freak out because your body and your mind is trying to protect you because you're losing your safety and stability. When it's time to pay your staff and invest in your business for a rate of return that will tenfold what you're able to do on your own, you freak out because the payroll number is too high. And it's a loss of safety and stability. And when we're doing this, again, we are reacting, trying to protect ourselves so that we are not vulnerable. But in fact, what actually happens is quite the opposite. By not investing in hiring and training our staff, we're trying to save money, but then we end up having to do it ourselves, or worse, it doesn't get done at all, which leads to a loss of retention, a loss of productivity and efficiency. And that in turn leads to even less money. Whereas a well oiled machine of your team that is working in lockstep with what your goals are and your vision is, when they have strong operations and you've invested in their education and continuing education, they can 10 times their own pay. Even a mediocre employee at times can 6x their own hourly rate and what they're able to produce within your company, whether they are teaching classes or landing new leads or leading to retention. They are actually increasing your revenue and your profitability. But the mind immediately thinks about, we're losing this. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And so we experience this sense of loss, these miniature sessions of grieving every time a large sum of money goes out. This is why so many of us get trapped because we're just scared in scarcity mindset. What's important here is to take a moment and pause and ask yourself, is it true? Are you actually safer when you don't spend money? And in most cases, the answer is no. Now, certainly if you spend a lot of money on things that aren't actually useful, or it's just a bunch of junk to please other people and you're trying to look like you're rich when you're not, that's a different thing. But when it comes to investing in your business or buying the necessary things, when it comes to getting the things that your business needs, when it comes to turning your back on trying to DIY everything, then you'll start to see that avoiding spending money is not usually the best course of action for you. First step for you, my friends, is to identify, how do you feel? What is your nervous system reaction when it comes to spending money, having to pay for something, looking at something that you're calling expensive? And then examine what it is and is it true? So back in 2017, I was in a low point with the studio. That 16-17 season was really difficult in terms of enrollment, and we were struggling. And I remember I paid $1,000 for a program. And at the time, I thought, oh my gosh, I don't even know how I'm going to do this because I barely pay myself, right? I still had my full-time job, and I said, "You know what? I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna spend the $1,000 on a business program." I actually learned a lot in that program. I learned things about retention, recruitment, managing staff, all kinds of different areas about money and things like that. And what I found is, when I was able to confront my fears with reality, I was able to make that decision because $1,000 for a business program sounded absolutely insane to me. I will tell you right now, it sounded absolutely insane. What were they going to give me for $1,000? But I saw people who had done this program and they were experiencing some good results, right? I saw people talking highly of this program, that it was really helpful for them. And I decided, well, I'm already at the point where I think I'm going to close my studio. So what the heck? Let me go for it. At least $1,000. If for some reason this doesn't work out, we can at least figure that out, even if I have to pay for it myself. So I went for it. I went all in. I tried it. I gave it a go. And sure enough, it worked out. Now, many of you have heard me say this story before. I've talked about it before on the podcast, but I use it to illustrate the importance of investing, whether it's investing in your future, your business, your retirement, yourself, and your peace. It is important to invest in that. And the biggest thing that robs us from that peace is that scarcity mindset, especially when it comes to money. So I encourage you to examine your own thoughts. Examine your own truth and decide, are you in a scarcity mindset? And if in fact you are, is it true? Is it true that not spending the money, that not taking that opportunity, that not hiring that person, not getting better marketing or a website, is it true that you're not safe if you spend it? Is it true that you lose your stability when you spend that money? My friends, I invite you to join me on this fabulous journey of life coaching for studio owners. I have had so much fun working alongside your colleagues in this industry. We are making major, major changes for business and life to bring dance studio owners the peace of mind that they deserve. If you're ready to join me, I invite you to visit my website, gingerheathcox.com/coaching. Go ahead and book your breakthrough call. And whether we work together or not, we'll spend 15 minutes together to figure out where you're stuck and what we can do to get you on the next right step. Until next time, take care.